Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming back for this episode. This and the next episode are probably the two hardest episodes I have ever done. I'm putting them off and putting them off and putting them off, and now I guess it's time to kind of face the music and do them. They both happened during my junior year, and there was a lot going on during that time. Like I've said before, there was a car accident. There were a couple of other things that I'll talk about during the two episodes. But for now, this episode is Liar, Liar. I'm Leah Batlle-Rafferty, and this is Memoirs of a Neurodivergent Latina. Okay, so something happened, and it happened, I think, junior year. And it's something that has stuck with me forever. I'm pretty sure it was junior year. And the reason I think it was junior year is because, as I said before, in my living group, you had old wise ones and young dumb ones. And I was in the living room with the young dumb one of my young dumb one, if that makes sense. So I couldn't have a young dumb one until sophomore year. And then there was, so it junior year, maybe later in the year, maybe halfway through the year. I don't remember exactly when. I want to preface this with, this is not how I would handle a situation like this right now. And the story that I'm telling you is not like I did the right thing. This whole episode is about the trait that I've talked about how I can't lie about big things, and how this particular thing, I don't know, I guess it scarred me a little bit. But it's not about how well I did or if I had the right reaction or anything like that. That's not at all what I'm trying to get at here. Okay, so our building, the half of the building that we occupied, had like a big dining room area. And then it had like a little, like, I guess family room type area. Like it was like a little TV room that we had that was on the first floor. I was sitting with this other person. We were both on the couch. Can't even remember if I was crocheting or anything. We were watching something on TV, and we were just chilling. And then suddenly this banging starts up. The banging started in the dining room windows. And it was like, let us in. And oh my God, I wish I could remember everything that they yelled, but there was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of hitting the windows. We lived near an area of town that wasn't so great. And there were a lot of bars, even though I don't think it was that late in the day. You know, it felt like maybe somebody could have been drunk or something. They kept banging. They moved down to the next window. Bang, 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 bang. They moved to the next window, yelling the entire time. She and I were panicked. We were freaked out. The curtains were closed, so I couldn't see who was outside. And we were just sitting there, totally tense, waiting to see if this passed us by and we could like relax. And then suddenly the doorbell rang. In the living group, there was sort of a standard thing that you did, which was you opened the door, like the inner doors that led to the staircase, and you walked out. And if you didn't recognize the person who was ringing, you would ask them their name, and you would ask who they were here for. And we had an intercom system. So you would walk into the room that we were in, and hit the intercom for every floor and call out that person's name. Most people rush through it, you might try a couple times. So anyway, so they rang the doorbell, but we're still behind the door for this family room thing. So we haven't yet seen who is at the front door. Okay. And the woman who was with me was so freaked out that she picked up the phone and she was ready to call 911. I mean, this is where we were emotionally heightened. We hadn't even looked at these people. We were freaked out. But I stopped her because, it didn't sit right with me that somebody who was maybe trying to hurt us would ring the doorbell. It didn't seem right. So I peeked out the door, and it was a bunch of kids our age with like bikes and stuff. And they were Black kids. And I say this now because that was part of what led to everything else later. But I was still freaked out just like she was. I just didn't think we should call the police. And once I saw them, I figured they were mostly safe, but I was still scared. So I ran next door through the back and grabbed the very first guy that I knew that might be willing to help me and had them come back with me. Now, the guy that I found happened to be a friend of mine. He was blonde, blue-eyed, tall, and so now I know how that must have looked. At the time, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking, a little bit of backup just in case. I don't think there's anything weird happening, but I'm scared. The banging really, really scared me. So I come back with him and I ask them, I say, who are you here for? And they gave me a name. And I went to the intercom and I went through each floor. I probably went through too quickly. I probably didn't do it again. I can't remember. I honestly, at this point, can't remember. But I did go through every floor, call out the name just like you normally do. Maybe I was soft because I was still shaken. And I came back after I waited a moment and I said, I don't think she's here. She's not here. And they left. During one of our house meetings, it turned out that she had been on the third floor and she very specifically thought that I had not actually called up. I told everyone the whole story, which, as you can hear, is not necessarily putting me in the best light, right? It doesn't necessarily put me in the best light, but I told them the entire story. I even mentioned how this other woman with me was going to dial 911 sight unseen, right? That's how scared we were. And I was not believed. A lot of people who I thought knew me, because this was my junior year. A lot of people who I thought knew me stopped talking to me suddenly. There was the woman who this was from moved out of the house. There were repercussions that for a little while I hadn't even tied to this particular incident that I now figure must have been from this incident. It left me with this shock, I think. The shock that people thought I was lying about that. Like I've said before, I can't lie about big things. I just can't. So for me, it was like, wait, I told you the real thing. Anyways, so it affected me a ton. This fact that I was not believed. And then there was a second thing that was less. It was less, but it also showed me very clearly stories that people had come up about me or something, because anyways, it was a lot more minor. So between the living group we were in and the fraternity next door, there was like emergency stairs, if you will. We had fire doors heading into the stairwell. The stairwell was technically owned by the fraternity, so it was really our fire escape thing. And women who liked to go next door would sometimes disable the fire door. And I was on the third floor. I was in a room very close to the fire door, and it got disabled. And I know that a lot of people assumed I had done it. Now, if you've been listening to my podcast, you know that I can't tear stuff apart. I hate it. It scares me. I don't like breaking things. And with my anxiety over certain things, the idea of unhooking a fire door incorrectly and maybe making it sound would be enough of a repellent for me to never even try. So I had nothing to do with these doors getting turned off so that people could cross over to the fraternity without having to go down to the first floor. But there was a general belief that I was. In fact, I remember in a particular meeting of our living group, I was like arguing about this and stating clearly that it wasn't me. And, somebody kind of turned the conversation away from it and turned it into more of a, this should not be happening. Nobody should be doing this. And I was like, it's been happening since the first year I got here, and I'm sure before that. So should isn't working, should not isn't working. So why don't we put a lock on one of the doors and people can wander in and out, and that way we're still safe if you're, worried about next door or whatever. And it happened. It didn't, I don't know that it happened right away, but it happened. Either way, the point is, there were these two incidents, and I don't know if there were more, that showed me very clearly that people in general didn't know me, and that some of the people that I thought were my good friends clearly didn't know the least thing about me. So so it was hard. I think that made me feel very isolated. It along, with people never coming to my shows and things like that, I think it made me realize more than ever that I didn't fit in. And it also made me stop speaking up about certain things, because clearly I wasn't going to be believed. There was an incident one of the years. It must have been junior year too. I don't remember. One of the years I was social secretary. Don't ask me how I got voted into social whatever, but I was social head whatever. And I ran a party, and this woman's boyfriend from somewhere else came to visit and got really drunk, and later in the night knocked on my door, and I opened it, and he tried to get into my room. And I managed to talk him out of coming into my room, and I closed the door. And I debated telling this woman what had happened. And I decided against it. Because clearly I wasn't going to be believed. They say that you make some of the best friends you'll ever have in college. I learned that year that I was not going to have that. So why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because I think other people like me probably have similar moments, similar situations, and similarly feel outside of the crowd, the group, etc. And perhaps have had similar situations where they feel very alienated and isolated. I am telling you this because I'm out the other side of it, right? Like this one and the next episode, I'm past it. I am not in the throes of that kind of feeling alienated, isolated space anymore. I found more of my voice. I found more of a place to stand. I found friends that I think are real friends. I am in a good place. So I guess I want to make sure that people know that you can come out the other side of it, that it's a struggle. It really is. It can leave you feeling very alone and very depressed, but you can do it. You can do it, and you will navigate through it, and you'll be okay. Thank you for tuning in to Memoirs of a Neurodivergent Latina. This podcast was written, edited, and produced by me, Leah Batlle-Rafferty. All music is by Carlos Neda. To send us an email, feel free to send to moanl@labradsolutions.com. That's MOANL@labradsolutions.com. And our website is www.moanl.com. And this podcast is part of Labrat Solutions, Inc.